Thank you very much for joining our webinar today on Chatbot Mythbusters. We are very lucky today to be joined by two customers of IPI and CX who are going to be sharing their valuable insights on the considerations and decisions that need to be made when thinking about the sort of use case for deploying conversational AI or chatbots. Things that you need to be thinking of during the deployment phase, and really sort of some best practice advice and tips from people who have been there, been through the process, and sort of have now come out the other side and are sort of optimizing the technology to sort of drive further benefits. So that's going to be the course of today. We've of course got an agenda which we're going to be following. So we're going to start with some welcome and introductions and give you a view on the customers who very kindly agreed to join us today. We're going to have a very quick about IPI and CX company, and then we're going to get into the main body of the seminar, which is the panel discussion. So during this, we're going to have a very much a sort of talking heads approach. This isn't going to be a webinar where we're hammering you with a load of slideware. It's very much an open conversation where myself and Simon from CX Company will be asking our customers a number of questions to really help sort of open out the conversation on some of those Mythbuster topics around chatbot. What we're also going to have is the ability for you guys to have Q&A into those customers as well. So on the GoToWebinar panel on the right hand side, there's an option for questions. So please, throughout the webinar, inject your questions in, and then we're going to dedicate some time at the end to running through those and answering any queries you may have. So, as I said, starting first up with some introductions, we're very lucky today to be joined by Lawrence McAteer and Julie Kay. Lawrence is from Northern Ireland Water, and Julie is from Orbit Housing. Both existing customers who've been through that battle. So I'll hand over to Lawrence first and let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit about NI Water and their environment. So Larry, over to you for intros.
Thanks, Steve. So Larry McAteer, I'm a project manager within the business improvement unit of Northern Water. And as the name suggests, Northern Water deliver clean drinking water and remove sewage from about 800,000 properties within Northern Ireland, and that covers about 1.8 million population of people, and we get about, say, 200,000 calls per year from customers asking a wide range of queries as regards to paying bills, reporting water leaks or sewage issues, or general questions in around the water quality and access into our facilities and such. So that's it in a nutshell.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Larry. And Julie, if we just ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Orbit and your environment there.
So I joined Orbit just over a year ago now. Came into a new team that was set up to look primarily at customer experience and developing the different channels that we could offer to our customer service base. Orbit Housing look after a whole range of customers, both in social housing, shared ownership and leaseholders. And the role really that I came in to do was to design the digital service strategy for Orbit and the contact principles across that customer base, and start to utilise more customer insight and engagement and reporting to understand what the demand was and how we best service that demand.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Julie. So I'm for those of you who don't know and haven't been on one of our previous webinars, I'm Stephen Murray, so I'm a line of business director at IPI. So my team really are responsible for both the applications which we develop and create ourselves, and also a select band of partner applications as well, including our friends at CX Company. So really what we do is try and steer our customers and help guide them into sort of target operating models, look at the look at the business outcomes that they want to achieve, the pain points, and then map a sort of technology strategy in to help that, which is really focused on customer experience, lowering the cost to serve, driving customers towards appropriate sort of self-service and automation, and ultimately delivering a better customer experience off the back of that. And with me, last but by absolutely no means least, is Simon from CX Company. So Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Steve. I think people thought I was on mute there for a minute. So I'd like to welcome everybody as well. Thanks for the introduction, Steve, and also share my thanks to Larry and Julie for joining this and sharing their many pearls of wisdom. So for those who don't know me, I'm director at the CX Company looking after the UK and Ireland. CX Company have been making and building conversational AI-based chatbots for over 15 years now. What feels like a relatively new industry or channel for us in the UK has actually been a very well trodden path for the team at CX Company. We do just short of 6 million transactions a day now through our chatbot platform for some 80 customers, some brands like Line Water and Orbit Group, but right through to large enterprise brands like KLM and Aegon and many others. We work across all sectors, so we have lots of experience in insurance and travel, in retail, which is we can bring to the table to help our clients to get started quickly and drive some real benefits. We're based all across Europe. Many of our brands are headquartered in the UK but have European-wide organisation operations, or equally based out of mainland Europe with feeds into the UK. We've recently been acquired by a really interesting business called cm.com, which for our existing customers and new customers, this really does open up a whole new world of messaging capabilities. So cm.com are a large global messaging business working essentially across SMS, but also into WhatsApp for Business and Apple Business Chat and Apple Pay, which means that we can start to embed conversational AI into WhatsApp for Business and Apple Business Chat, take payments, sign documents, across that automation platform. Which, just to kind of close on the summary, that's really what CX Company are all about. It's not just serving up generic FAQs. We actually want to put our arms around the customer, understand what they're trying to do, and actually complete that transaction for them fully automated, rather than the need for a human to get involved. But when a human does need to get involved, we make that process of handing over to an agent really streamlined and simple and easy. So hopefully we'll get some great experience today out of Larry and Julie, who'll actually tell you the realities of working with chatbots in their operations, which I think is what we all want to hear.
Absolutely right. That's a beautiful segue, almost as though we've rehearsed it now, Simon, into our panel discussion, which is obviously the reason that everyone's in attendance today, to listen to customers who've been on that journey and continue to go on that journey. So I think we'll start with a question to you, Julie, if that's okay. And it's a fairly broad one, but what was the sort of initial sort of use case or challenge that you were facing when you sort of came aboard?
Yeah, so as I alluded to, one of the things that we really needed to get a good understanding of was the demand that was coming in primarily to our customer service centre. We were seeing for our customer base a relatively high level of call volume coming through. We wanted to try and identify what were the core reasons for those calls, and was there a mechanism where we could take some of that demand where it was more valuable to present that more proactively to customers via a different channel, rather than them having to phone through into the contact centre. And this then also the benefit of freeing up our contact centre agents to deal with maybe some of the more complex and particularly in housing, the more kind of emotive queries and issues that our customers were trying to get through to us on. So that was my first step, was to have a look at the kind of demand that was coming in. After the collation of what that looked like, it became very obvious that there was a whole raft of information that customers were seeking, which was fairly generic and static, that as a very baseline level of chatbot, without the full integration, we could present to them in a way that was available to them 24/7 and was easy to absorb and to work their way through. So that was the original challenge. How do we start to present information to customers in a different and an easier to access channel, and to try and free up our contact center agents to deal with more complex and emotive queries.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And I suppose, Julie, there's quite a significant consideration, I guess, around vulnerable customers in your organisation, I'm guessing.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the keys for us is to be able to get to those queries as quickly as possible. And as we know, the telephone is never going to die. There will always be a large percentage of customers that still want to speak to somebody, and particularly in those instances where they are vulnerable, or at this moment in particular where they have financial concerns, we need to be able to get them to somebody quickly, and to move all of the more low-level, high-volume queries to a more appropriate channel.
Absolutely. And Larry, I suppose, yeah, just to get your view then, yeah, what was your initial sort of use case or challenge which you faced there at NI Water?
It's very much the same as what Julie. We were wanting to reduce our calls into the call centre to allow agents to work on more complex, more value-add work with customer queries, and allow customers for general information and such, to be able to go online and get information online without having to pick the phone up. And what you find is that customers will go online to try and get the phone number, and while they're online, if they can answer the question they're online, then they're using the channel of their choice. So it's kind of again for the customer and again for ourselves. So reducing calls into the CRC, but allowing customers to get in that information through online, which is more accessible at times. And you usually find that some people of certain generations don't want to pick the phone up and talk. They'd rather use it on online. So we find the chatbot being very, very beneficial in that respect.
Yeah. Was there a sort of specific set of questions or queries which were just becoming a real sort of pain or repetitive pain for the agents to deal with?
It was, we've done a bit more work on telling people where issues are. So what's happening in your area is one of the main things we would use. And that was the main use of the chatbot. People saying, I live this postcode. Can you tell me if there's no water or what the issues are? So it took an awful lot of calls away from the call centre, just to give people informed and direct them to the part of the website that keep them up to date. And also those other parts for not operational, but septic tank desludge requests, which is a transactional kind of work. And we directed them to an online portal that allows them to do the request online instead of having to use the phone. So that's probably the two main ones, kind of the no water in the septic tanks, and then simple things like, water hardness, water quality. So those things that the general information that don't need an agent to explain, because there's adequate information that we would use the bot to point them to. So it's more beneficial for customers in that respect.
And I'd imagine that many of the attendees on the call today will be kind of evaluating a multitude of different technologies to kind of attack the sorts of problems that both Larry and you, Julie, have articulated. And I guess we're very grateful that you saw the vision of using bots to do it. But I guess, what was it about the chatbot versus other technologies that are out there that made you kind of go for the sort of bot option, as you could see that it was going to resolve what you wanted? So you could have gone in many different directions. So what was it about? Why did you land on the chatbot as being the answer, I guess, is the question.
So to be honest with you, I think the big selling point with us was having customer insight. We did think about what we'll do. We'll put a simple question and answers that you ask a question and it will present a list of answers that you could use. But because of the bot uses AI and NPL, it helps direct the customer to the right answer. But I think more importantly, we were able to have better insight as to understand if there's any questions that customers are asking that we can't answer. We were able to, through the chatbot and through the reporting, be able to understand what those gaps are, and then we could continuously improve the database that provides the answers. So that's the big take from us, whereas being able to understand the customers continue to develop and to get the feel to understand what customers are asking, what's the information they want, whereas the simple questions and answers wasn't going to satisfy us in that respect.
And Julie, I remember from our early conversations, that's a relatively similar sort of circumstance for you guys as well, is just being able to get more insight and information via the digital channels around, why customers were contacting you, but also giving you the opportunity to kind of continuously improve. Would that be fair? And can you expand on that?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, similar to Larry, one of the huge benefits of the bot is that you can get visibility of exactly what customers are asking you and understand what their demand is. It also enabled us to understand the kind of language that they were using as well, Simon, because I think there was historically a view that our customer base was of a certain demographic and a certain age, and that we needed to talk to them and explain things in a certain way. And that demographic over the last 5 years alone has changed quite significantly. So using the bot, we started to identify just different wording and key phrases and how they refer to certain parts of our business where potentially, based on the language that we were using, might have been confusing for them. So it enabled us to see that as well and start to change our kind of tone of voice and how we approach those customers on a wider scale. But it also was something that I'd seen used in other organisations where I'd worked previously very successfully. So I knew it was something that could add benefit to our business, but also that it had a longer term capability. Because as part of my role looking at a wider digital strategy, we were looking to implement additional kind of functions such as live chat, and the self-serve portal that Larry referred to. And a bot is something that easily interacts with those as well and allows us to hand off customers seamlessly into other channels. So it just seemed the ideal starting point.
Yeah, no, it's good. And that's a really important consideration, actually, that interoperability between different channels and that in terms of being able to manage that customer engagement from channel to channel. And I think that's certainly sort of evidencing itself with you guys as well.
Yeah, so I suppose that lends itself really, I suppose, to what what was the sort of prior knowledge of sort of chatbots and conversational AI, before you sort of embarked on those projects. Larry, what was the sort of experience there with you guys or with the business beforehand?
So to be honest, it's just what we're doing now, going to webinars and understanding what was out there, what the trends were, looking at different suppliers and seeing what they had to offer, and just getting a feel for all the pros and cons of what you can and what you cannot do, and understand within the limitations, especially the budget and everything else, what you can enable for better customer journeys. So it's again talking to yourselves, webinars, research. It's just that kind of stuff. So that's where I started off from.
Yeah, and how about you, Julie?
Yeah, so a similar thing in terms of going to webinars and investigating what was kind of seen as best in market, looking at some of the surveys that come out from the Institute of Customer Service and some of the other key players that do a lot of white papers around what is it that customers are looking for and what service channels are people trying to move to. And bots was that percentage was increasing year on year, so I could see that there was a growing demand in that kind of area. But also I'd used bots, like I said, at a previous job quite successfully. And also within the team that I work within in customer experience, we're quite a different range of people from different backgrounds. and my team had a lot of exposure to bots in the past as well. So I think it was a combination of good experiences that I'd had and that my team had had with bots, the information in the marketplace and in customer service forums telling us that this was a growing channel and a growing demand from customers, and then the ability to find a partner that we could work with that understood our very particular needs. I think housing, to say that the people that I work with in housing didn't really have a lot of knowledge around digital is probably where we were at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting, like, because the sort of the likes of sort of Gartner and Forrester and the big research groups, they're for many years they've talked about the sort of digitalization of the contact center and customer service, but I think sometimes customers almost sort of struggle to believe that that's happening. So that sort of peer-to-peer conversations with other sort of people within the sector, I think, is really sort of critical to sort of understand and soak up the learnings, I think, from people who've been there before or kind of been first person in that respect. Simon, I think you had a question.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting actually that both Larry and Julie work for organisations where you're both pioneering the technology, and I think you're early adopters, particularly you, Larry, early adopters of chatbots as a service. Looking probably 2 years now. So I guess that might surprise some people to think that you picked up on this sort of trend early. Good for you. If you can share the lottery numbers as well, that would be amazing. But what hurdles did you have, or what justification did you have to go through internally in order to kind of convince people that this kind of new wave technology was something that was going to solve your challenges?
Yeah, you got a point there. It wasn't an easy sell to try and sell new technology, something that's been innovative, to senior management to say yes, that's something we want to have. So it was a fair bit of socializing with the senior management and showing them the benefits. And I think we're back to this point of we went onto our Northern Water website and says, okay, if you do a search for water quality, it gave you multiple links, and you had to go through and read things and such things. But we were able to show the fact if you did it through a bot, the bot really brings it down to the actual information you want and show them that it's an awful lot cleaner and a better customer experience. But I think the selling point was more or less getting more understanding of our customers' intent, and providing that their feedback. So when we said we can spend so much money on just do a simple question answers, or you can do this and you can really understand your customer, which is one of the things that we're trying to do. One of our kind of mantras is basically customers are the center of everything we do. So we really need to understand the customer. And if a customer's going on their website, we're able to say, yes, they did a search, but we weren't able to see what they searched and if they were content with the outcome and if they satisfied the needs. Whereas by using a bot, it was able to provide that information. So that was a hard sell. Once they got their head around that, we were able to understand customers better. It was more or less saying, yes, that's the right direction we want to travel. So proceed with them for looking for a solution.
Great. And Julie, I mean, you were relatively new into the organisation when we first started talking, so you staked your reputation on this working. So what was it you recalling now? What was it you had to go through to kind of justify this as the new person in, I suppose?
Yeah. So I guess for me, the business had limited awareness of kind of digital and automated options. We didn't really play in that space at all. So this was very new to the vast majority of our board that I had to try and sell this to. So it was more around utilising some of the existing customers that had used this and demonstrating case studies of how this had benefited their business. Our particular board members it wasn't so much on return investment, which was a good thing, I guess, It was more around customer satisfaction and improving our CSAT scores. So one of our driving kind of objectives in housing is to make sure that we can deliver the best service possible for our residents, because I guess we don't necessarily have that kind of competition in the market as some of the other industries do. So customer satisfaction is very much a driver for us. And what I had to try and demonstrate to the board was how providing information to our customers in a different channel, and a channel that through a number of customer engagement forums that we held, and customer insight surveys that we gathered, that, you know, I think there was a perception that housing customers were not particularly digitally savvy, and that's completely wrong. And that was proven in the engagement and the insight surveys that we gathered. And our customers were calling out for different channels and asking us to provide the ability for them to get access to information in a channel and a time that was appropriate for them, and fitting for them. And when I joined, we just didn't have that option. So it was more difficult to get people to understand actually what a bot was and how it worked, as opposed to me being able to convince them actually here are the benefits in terms of customer satisfaction, and being able to drive customers to gather that information themselves in an easier way. It was more about just getting the business to even understand what a bot was. I mean, people kept calling it a chat box.
Yes, I remember.
It was very much an education piece, and being able to demonstrate to them that it had been successful in other business areas that could relate to a similar customer base as ours.
And Steve, if I may just carry on for just one moment. So, and I think one thing you and the team did, Julie, that I thought was very brave, but actually proved, you know, really insightful, was you actually started off with an open bot, with a bot that didn't have any sort of real content in it, and just let your customers ask anything for a period of time. And clearly we then were able to listen and learn and watch and see what sorts of demand they had. But for me, that was quite a very insightful way of going about, you know, then understanding what we're going to build going forward. And that gave you some really good evidence of customers' appetite as well. Would you recommend that approach? Is that something, what were your reflections on that, having been through it?
Yes, I think my advice on that, Simon, would be that if you have the right internal structure to be able to manage that moving forward, then that would definitely be a good approach. I think in my team, we're a relatively small team. So we started with that open bot approach because we just wanted to see, one, would customers use it? And two, if they did, what were they asking us? Rather than, we had historically jumped to conclusions, I guess, about what customers wanted to ask us. And we didn't want to go ahead and replicate that and put hundreds of questions and answers in the bot, spend all that time building them, and then find out 3 months later that actually of those 100 questions, customers had only asked us 5 of them, but had actually presented us with another 100 that we hadn't even thought about. So I think if you've got the right people in situ to be able to gather all of that information as customers are posing questions, and you have the right internal infrastructure built to be able to rapidly get the answer to that question and make it live, then I personally think that that's a good way to go, because it gives you an immediate insight to what your customers think about a bot, how they're going to use it, the terminology that they're going to use, and the key questions that they're going to ask. Because we found with that open approach, actually, studying the information coming through on a day-by-day basis, we ended up ultimately only building about 40 questions, because they were the constant questions that people asked. They might have asked them in 700 different ways, but it was the same 40 answers that they were looking for. It's just making sure you've got the people in place that can quickly get you the answer, get it built, get it loaded, and get it live.
Which I guess is the advantage of digital CX, right? Is accessing all of the dashboards and the data and that ease of you being able to build your own bots fast, without overselling, of course. But that's why that approach worked for you, I think, because you did have that flexibility afforded by the service.
Well, I mean, obviously as you know, Simon, the key for us with using CX is very early stages in our project. COVID happened. And we were asked to spin up a very specific COVID bot as quickly as we possibly could, which wasn't in our plan at all. We hadn't considered doing that. We weren't prepared for it. But because of the flexibility of the platform and the support that we got in being able to get ourselves prepared to build the kind of question and the functionality that we needed, I mean, we turned that around in 2 weeks, which was quite phenomenal, I think, for our area.
Yeah, it's a super fast time to deployment, really, when you consider the sort of technology underlying that. So that sort of leads us quite nicely into sort of approach, really. So obviously, having made the sort of the decision, the selection of technology. How did you go about sort of planning for the deployment of the project, Larry?
So it was very much kind of hands-on from both sides. What we had basically was the project managers on both sides of the business were supporting. What we spent an awful lot of time talking to the business users and business owners to understand the kind of questions. We understood from our data within our contact center the questions that are asked, but we spent an awful lot of time with the business saying, here's a question, can you give me what kind of response we need to give? And then we built our questions and answers. So it's a bit different from what Judy did. Judy did very much open, ask a question, we'll give you answers and we'll build the bot as we go along. Whereas we did the opposite. We understood the questions customers were asking our call center, and the ones that we could say, we'll use those onto the bot. So we spent an awful lot of time building on the bot, but then we also spent a fair bit of time with the business to say, how do you want this to look like on the website? So when customers go on the website, how do you think, do you want it to be very prominent, very standardish, or do you want to have it kind of down at the bottom of the page so people can go and look for it? So give the business that ability to be part of the solution, so they become the owners of it. So it was very much in the benefit of that, they were buying into it as well, and they were seeing the benefits, and they were kind of encouraging, keeping focused and making sure that kind of we answered the questions as succinct as we could. Because sometimes what we found was the business was coming back with reams of information, and you're saying, well, that's not really what our customer's going to look and want to read. What you do too, you can have a link that sends them to more details, but can you bring that answer down to 2 sentences at most? So we were doing that, and we were working with CX, who were then helping build the bot as we were providing the information as we're going along. And again, then the support side of it as well, constantly from both sides, looking at the results of customer usage. And we internally launched it to allow the business to use it and take feedback. So it then allowed us to kind of tweak questions and answers that we believed we had done right, but obviously there's a few changes before we actually went live. And then when we went live, it was pretty much a soft launch. We actually put it on the website and let customers who land on the website see it there and ask the questions down in. So it wasn't a big advertisement to say, come on to our website and ask the questions. It was more or less, it was there. And the reason for that was because most people were going onto the website to get our telephone number. So while they were there, they said, oh, let me help you. Here's a question. So that's what we did. So it's very much hands-on from all, from the business, from the project team, and from CX to deliver the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit on a really good point there. It's about getting that buy-in from across all of the stakeholders, like any project, to really drive a great outcome. And Julie, so the same question to you. I know you sort of touched on it previously, but you took a slightly different approach. But in terms of that, different colleagues from across the organisation, how did you sort of go about planning that?
Yeah, so we captured what we thought was the main customer demand across the different departments and the different activities that occur within housing. You know, the key things that we knew customers were contacting us about at a high level, such as kind of tenancy queries and repairs, but we didn't know the specifics of exactly what were they contacting us about in that world. So we knew the areas where that demand was going into, but we probably weren't as clear as to the real kind of nitty gritty of what that query was about. So we liaised with each of the heads of those different departments to understand their core activity. And then we identified the existing procedures and policies that we already had in place. One of the key things and considerations for me was making sure that I had the ability to make sure that whatever information I presented to a customer through the bot was always up to date and in line with our current procedures and policies, particularly in the industry that we're in at the moment. There's a lot of changes going on. We're continually improving the way that we work and refining those procedures. So I had to make sure that we had a back-end mechanism to make sure that if anybody changed a procedure in one of those areas, that flagged through to me so I could keep the bot up to date and in line with the same message the customer would get if they phoned through to the contact center. Yes, we went with a very, minimal viable product. We went live with pretty much an empty bot on the main bot. So our original plan was to define two different bots. We had an external facing bot for our customers, but we also decided to build an internal facing bot for our staff because our contact center had identified that team leaders were receiving a lot of queries from their staff and that we were getting queries from other parts of the business, particularly more of our field-based operatives. And we wanted to try and present the same level of information to our internal staff as the capability that we could do for our external customers. So we originally wanted to launch with 2 bots. We ended up going with 3 because of COVID. But I think the key for us was understanding how it would be used and what the look and feel needed to be for our particular customers. So there was a lot of liaison with our brand and our comms team. And like I said, our comms team in relation to tone of voice and the different way we wanted to just how, even down to the granular level of, do we start the bot with hello or hi or welcome? And exactly what kind of tone of voice did we want to present? We made sure that we defined internal resource required to manage the bot moving forward because we were conscious that with the approach that we took with the empty bot, there would be a lot of upfront work initially to start to answer and address all of those questions coming through. So we had to make sure that we had the right resource in place to do that. But then also there was an approach taken to look at, once we had launched the bot in this way, there was a secondary business case that we worked on as to future phasing for the bot, as I alluded to, because our plan was always a slightly longer term, and how we would start to link that directly to our live chat and push customers into the self-serve portal, and how we would continue to expose all of the extra functionality we could get from it.
Interesting, and I think what's the reality, Julie, in terms of the impact on resources internally? I mean, how have you designed the organisation around chatbots? You've mentioned they're needing to continuously improve. So what does that look like for you in terms of types of roles and effort needed?
So, I mean, it's relatively easy, to be honest, Simon. I guess it was we had a view that it might be quite labour intensive early doors because of the approach that we took, but actually it wasn't that difficult. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. I mean, I actually manage quite a lot of the bot content at the moment just because I enjoy it, because I like seeing what customers are asking us. And it gives me insight into other things that I could develop based on what customers are asking. But we do have a digital content officer. So we had one of those already in situ who looked after all of our web content. So we just had to make sure that we had the bandwidth for that individual, and in the early days supported by my team who do the implementation, to make sure that we could load all of those questions and answers. I think what we've seen is, even though we haven't been, I guess, live very long, the customer queries are very much the same. So we're not seeing a high demand of questions coming through anymore where I need to add answers. There's probably 1 or 2 a week that are brand new to me now, because we got that massive influx to begin with, and then actually the customer's usage of it remained fairly similar. The resource requirement is really low, and the ability on the portal to address the questions and build it in the right way excuse me, is really quick and easy to do. It's very easy, even for myself. I'm not the most digitally wizardry person, but I can build a transactional dialogue and Q&As now relatively quickly, so it must be easy.
and Larry, your chatbot is much more mature now. It's very much an embedded part of your sort of operating model. So what's the reality there on an ongoing basis in terms of the effort and skills you require to keep the bot up to date and working well?
Yeah, so we took the decision at the actual project initiation phase was to spend an awful lot of more upfront time and building dialogues instead of just doing simple questions and answers. We actually started building the dialogues, which is an awful lot more time consuming. But the benefit of that was that, you know, the questions and answers that we have is a conversation to the customer to come to a good completion, and the customer is satisfied that they're getting the right answers. So nowadays we would spend times looking at the gap analysis, you know, and it's relatively good. We're getting about 80% recognition rate, and with that it's about 90% answering, which is considerably more than what the kind of the industry standard would kind of point you towards. And I think it's because we spent an awful lot of more time and effort up front before we launched it, to spend that their time. Like Julie, we don't get an awful lot of questions that are new. We sometimes would tweak it depending on it, kind of some questions coming back, but a lot of time just spent looking at it and making sure that there's nothing that we have dropped out. And again, a lot of time spent understanding the customers. That's what we have. We have a customer insight manager who looks at this and reviews it with the CX team as well, and sees where we can go in the next steps moving forward to make it more beneficial for our customer experience. So that's where our kind of energy is being spent at the moment, understanding the customer's intent.
Yeah, and what sort of, I suppose, off the back of that, you know, those are really phenomenal sort of recognition and answer rates, Larry. What sort of benefits, sort of ROI and sort of feedback are you getting from customers and agents?
So there's about 2,500 sessions per month we would have on the bus. Now we can't correlate that across and says there's 2,500 calls being reduced into the call centre, but there is a significant less calls going to the call centre, which are the generic kind of the easy questions and answers that an agent can answer, but you can answer on the website. So that's the benefit we've seen, is reduction in those calls, which are kind of looking at simple things, water quality, or what's happening in my area, or I want a septic tank. So those kind of things that can be done without having to talk to an agent, we've seen a reduction in those calls going into the CRC. Yeah. So that's a benefit I expect.
And I suppose that just, sorry, Larry, and I suppose that just ultimately means you've got more capacity, you know, within the contact centre without having to hire more staff fundamentally.
It allows the agents to focus more on the more complex issues, you know, the more value add that we've got with our customers, and our customers are more satisfied, you know, because you can spend more time with them to kind of answer those questions and queries that they have that are, you know, in around more complex queries, you know. So and that it's a benefit to both the business as well as the customer.
Absolutely. And I know, Julie, I know Orbit's obviously slightly different from a sort of in terms of sort of looking at commercial ROI, but again, perhaps just touch on some of the further benefits you've seen around sort of CSAT and sort of perhaps some of the deflections.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, a return on investment is a good thing, right? If we can get that. It wasn't the focus of the delivery of our bot, but I think it's fair to say that we still have seen a return on investment from that, because, like Larry alludes to, you do see a drop off in more general queries. I would say the key benefits that we saw from this was the questions posed from our customers really supported us in the design of our new website content. So we had another project running to completely redesign our website because that had not been updated for some time. And the kind of questions that customers were asking us and the queries and the difficulties that they were having really fed into that project and enabled us to redesign our website in a way that our customers could get hold of the information quicker and easier with less clicks, and what the key things were that were important to them, because our website was very noisy, and it allowed us to remove a lot of content that our customers were just not interested in that we thought they were, and to make that easier to navigate. So it definitely benefited other projects that we were working on to improve customer satisfaction. I think the other thing it also highlighted, because we send out quite a few letters and mailings, and we have kind of key points in our year where we have to notify customers of certain activities that go on in relation to their tenancy. The other thing that we were able to see really quickly were any issues with clarity of message on those mailings and campaigns, because instantly we would get bot questions relating to, I've had a letter, what does this mean? I need to understand more detail around this. So the other thing that it allowed us to do was to really refine some of the key activities that we do on a large scale. So for example, rent reviews and annual service charges, they can be quite complicated. And what we managed to glean from the bot were the key areas of those messages that were really unclear, which we wouldn't have been able to do before. So I guess the biggest benefit we've been able to identify is all of the other areas that we didn't realise were a problem, and we then saw they were a problem and were able to quickly fix them.
Okay, that's interesting. Makes a lot of sense. Simon, I think we've got time for one more question to the panel, and then we'll go into some Q&A. We've covered a huge amount, so yeah, time for one more to the panel.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, good. Thanks for keeping me honest, Steve. So I guess working with both of you, we're working on a 6 to 12 month roadmap. We can see ways to extend the service further. I guess it'd be good for you to share a little bit about what your thinking is currently around where next, looking at the next sort of 6 to 12 month planning horizon. Larry, what share your thinking.
So the one that comes out to me, we've discussed it, and we kind of keep looking to move forward in this, is how can we connect to smart speakers? I think that's something that comes through. The smart speakers are more and more prevalent in people's houses and such. So can you use the smart speaker to ask the questions of enable your NI water, and then say, if it's Alexa, say, Alexa, why have I got no water? And or Alexa, what's the quality of my water? Asking those questions. I think there's a benefit in that. Even saying, Alexa, pay my water bill, so you can do that. That's a biggie. I can see a lot more kind of auto dialogues. So when a customer puts in a question, and instead of having to go back and forward, the system will kind of generate those kind of questions, the kind of conversation, the kind of giving the details in around that. Again, looking at people put in very long questions. How do you take out the main words and understand that and present it? So we're working towards that as well. So minimizing the complexity of understanding the customer's questions and presenting it as people say, hi, my name's such and such, I live in such and such, and I don't think I've got too high pressure water. Can you help? So it's water and pressure. So you get answers on water pressure. So I can see that being a help. And again, just looking to see how can we link this into more of a chat, instead of being a bot, transactional work as well. So whenever you're asking
Yeah.
something for like again, I'm saying septic tank, we have about 6 to 7 questions. Go through that, record the answers, and then send that the request over to our operational system that then raises the request for that to be processed to the field staff. So that's some of the areas that I would say that the kind of the next generation of bots or with the CX and API would be working towards.
Well, Larry, you certainly keep us on our toes. Many of our audience there might be surprised to hear you mention voice, and it's probably just worth touching that. I think where we absolutely see the market going is the lines blurring between voice and text. So as far as we're concerned, if you have an answer in digital CX, we can serve it up, as a voice answer in an IVR, as a voice answer in a smart device, smart speaker. But equally, we can start sharing those text articles in WhatsApp or Apple Business Chat or through the more traditional online in-app type journey. So I think there's a maturity in the market almost catching up with what the capacity, what the platform can actually do. But we absolutely see enabling voice through that one platform as being a key way the market's going. You mentioned, some of the other improvements in AI and machine learning to really kind of identify what customers are asking and creating suggestions around how you might answer those, which you can do today. And I suppose that's related for you, Julie, as well, because we've talked, about how we engage across messaging channels to support in the collections process, for example. So what are the future use cases you're already looking to build out?
Yes, I mean, to follow on from that kind of voice piece there, Simon, that's the key bit for us next, really, is the bot becoming a voice bot in our telephony platform. So that's part of our next steps in terms of managing to support customers that are sitting in a queue, to channel shift them and deflect them out somewhere else, but also to enable kind of a 24/7 automated IVR using a voice bot. So there's some key interactions that we have with our customers where the bot can go into our CRM system and access that data and read it back to the customer, so that we don't even need to put them through to an agent. And that's one of the things that we're looking at with IP integration, is how we do that, and how we can. I mean, one of the key questions that we get asked is, what's my balance? That doesn't need to be answered by an advisor, and we can do that through a voice bot in our telephony platform using automated IVR. We're also looking at how we can link it directly to our live chat. So they're not directly linked at the moment, but we want to build a point where we can answer the customer question to a certain level, and then it instinctively knows that it has to hands off to a live chat agent, and it seamlessly just pushes them into that agent, because it looks at what the conversation topic was, it looks at the skill set of the agents available, and it hands that customer into the live chat of the most appropriately skilled agent in the contact center. So that's also on our roadmap. And I guess the thing that we're working on actively at the moment that's available to us right now is we're making better use of the ability to use the bot as like a form capture. So we have in housing a lot of forms that customers have to fill in, and applications to make changes and update us on information. So what we're trying to do is remove the excess amount of steps in that journey that there are at the moment, and enable the bot to capture that information where the customer just thinks they're having a conversation with us, but we're capturing all the mandated information we need, and it then puts it into a form template, and it routes it right first time to the team that can action that query. So that's something that we're building right now.
Excellent.
Great. Steve, I think we've had a question from panel.
Yeah, I think we're it's a perfect point to move on to our sort of Q&A. So we've had a few questions come in whilst we've been on. So let me just get to the question panel, and I'll answer this one. So could the panel talk about scenarios where the technology was applied not necessarily to reduce simple inquiries, but to compliant interactions in a regulated finance environment? CXCO mentioned Aegon. So I think probably less to the panel, probably more one for you, Simon.
Yeah, no, sure. So, and happy to expand on this a bit further, but we work extensively across financial services, and one of the advantages of using a bot is it can be 100% compliant. So, only what is put into the bot is what's served up to the customer. Unlike other services where perhaps the robots can go rogue and start guessing what answers might be needed and therefore undermining brand and compliance, we just don't allow that to happen. We still use all the benefits of the machine learning to create the content, but we simply don't publish it until that's been approved by a hierarchy, and that's down to the individual organisation to agree their sign-off. So for us, we're working on quite a number of really interesting use cases, like setting up a new insurance policy, right through to first notification of loss in a claims environment. We're doing balance inquiries for banks. We are helping with live consumption for utilities. So that sort of, with compliance and that ability to kind of handle those types of often regulated conversations within our sort of fully secure ISO secured environment is important to our customers.
Great. We've got another one come in, which is to the panel, which is if you knew then what you know now, is there anything you do differently? So Larry, over to you for that one. Your response.
Yeah, I think spend an awful lot. You're going to spend about 80 to 90% of your time developing this with the business. So we took it the fact that we could do simple questions and answers, and that'll be it. Be all done and dusted. Whereas when we actually got into it, we found that we had to spend an awful lot of time with the business to get the right answer, because sometimes our answers were old, so they weren't fresh, they weren't up to date, and trying to get the business time from the field staff and such to sit down and go through the answers was probably the big take. If I was to do it now again, put an awful lot more time aside for that. That's what we found.
Brilliant, thank you, Larry. And Julie, same question to you. What's if you had the hindsight glasses on, what would you do differently?
I think mine is very similar to Larry. Actually, it's about the amount of engagement that you need to get from the key stakeholders in this process. So I would probably make sure that I had dedicated contacts in specific areas that I could liaise with on a quick turnaround for certain questions and answers, because as Larry alluded to, that there is a lot of engagement that you need to have with the areas that will get the benefits from the bot answering questions on their behalf, and it's about having that dedicated link to them and their absolute understanding of the benefits that it can give to them and to why they should release the resource upfront when it's needed.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got time for one more. So the final one, which we'll ask again, it's what is the panel's view? Do you pretend the bot is human, or do you make it clear that it's a bot? So Julie, perhaps you'd like to give us your approach on that one first.
So we make it clear that it's a bot. We've made it clearer that it's a bot over time, as we noticed, because we went with the open approach. We got some customers instantly that started talking to it like it was a person, and we had to make it very clear that it was a bot. But we absolutely spent a lot of time making sure that it had an element of a personality. So it has a name, it has a colour brand, it has certain terminology that we use to give it a personality. So we try to make it less virtual assistant, but still very clear to a customer that if you want to speak to a live person, then we can hand you on to a live person.
Fantastic. Again, and Larry, same one to you.
Very much the same as Julie. We didn't try and pretend that it was a person you're talking to. It was very much you knew when you went online, you asked the questions, it was a bot, because it was a cartoon figure that you had, and we toggled between male and female. We didn't give it a name because, again, asking questions about what are you going to call it and such. So we very much just made sure the fact that people weren't being kind of thinking they were talking to a real person.
Yeah, fantastic.
Very good.
Brilliant. Well, we will follow up. There's a couple more questions, but we'll follow up individually with them in the instances of time. We're just about over time now, but I suppose in closing, I just wanted to really thank Larry and Julie again for giving up their time to share their really valuable insight with us on the journey they've been through, and allowing us all to sort of quiz them for the last hour. Thank you, Simon, as well for coming on and supporting. A copy of the webinar is going to be made available and will be emailed out in follow-up to all the attendees. And we look forward to seeing you on the next IPI webinar very soon. And have a fantastic day. And with that, we'll close off. Cheerio, everyone.
Thanks very much. Have a good day. Thank you.